In the autumn of 1969, 3 letters arrived simultaneously at 3 California newspapers. Each letter contained the same message: a taunting confession to a series of murders and a coded cipher. The writer claimed the cipher contained his identity, his real name, encoded in a system he was confident nobody could break. He was almost right. The cipher sat unsolved for 51 years, defeating amateur code breakers, defeating professional cryptographers, defeating the FBI, defeating the CIA, until December of 2020, when a small team of private researchers announced they had finally cracked it. And what the cipher said sent chills through everyone who read it. The Zodiac killer was never caught, never identified, never brought to justice. He killed at least 5 people in confirmed attacks, possibly many more. And for over 50 years, he has been one of the most terrifying and most studied unsolved cases in American criminal history. This is his story, and the story of the message he left behind. Welcome back to Mysterious History, the channel where the official story is never the whole story. Today, we are covering something different. Not an ancient mystery, not a lost civilization, a crime. A series of brutal murders committed in Northern California between 1968 and 1969 by a killer who was never caught, who taunted the police and the press with letters and ciphers, who claimed to be killing for sport, and who may still be alive today. The Zodiac killer case is one of the most extensively investigated unsolved murder cases in American history. And despite decades of investigation, hundreds of suspects, and the eventual cracking of his most famous cipher, the identity of the Zodiac killer remains officially unknown. The Zodiac killer's confirmed attacks took place in Northern California between December 1968 and October 1969. The first confirmed attack was on December 20, 1968, near the town of Benicia. 2 teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were shot and killed while parked on a remote road. Betty Lou was shot 5 times in the back while running from the car. David was shot once in the head at close range. There was no apparent motive, no robbery, no sexual assault. They were simply killed. 6 months later, on July 4, 1969, a second attack occurred near Vallejo. A couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau, were shot while parked at a lover's lane. Ferrin died. Mageau survived. His description of the attacker gave investigators their first physical profile. White male, heavy set, round face. Shortly after this attack, the Zodiac sent his first letters to the newspapers. 2 more attacks followed. On September 27, 1969, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were attacked at Lake Berryessa. The killer wore a hooded costume with a crossed circle symbol on the chest, the symbol that would become his trademark. He tied them up and stabbed them repeatedly. Shepard died. Hartnell survived. The final confirmed attack came on October 11, 1969, in San Francisco. Cab driver Paul Stein was shot in the head at point-blank range. The killer cut a piece of Stein's shirt and sent it with his next letter as proof. 5 confirmed dead, 2 survivors, and a city gripped by terror. What made the Zodiac killer uniquely terrifying was not just the murders. It was the letters. He wrote to newspapers and police throughout his active period, and possibly beyond. The letters were taunting, arrogant, filled with misspellings that researchers have debated for decades. Were they genuine mistakes or deliberate misdirection? In his letters, the Zodiac claimed responsibility for his confirmed attacks. He also claimed responsibility for additional murders that were never definitively linked to him. He claimed a total victim count that ranged from 7 to 37 in different letters. The true extent of his crimes has never been determined. He threatened to attack school buses, to shoot out tires, and pick off the children as they ran. The threat caused mass panic in the Bay Area. Armed escorts were considered for school buses, and woven throughout the letters were the ciphers. Coded messages that he claimed contained information about his identity. His most famous cipher, the Z408, was sent in 3 parts to 3 different newspapers in July of 1969. The Zodiac sent multiple ciphers during his active period. 4 have been identified and studied extensively. The Z408 is the most famous, a 408-character cipher divided into 3 parts. Within weeks of its publication, a high school teacher named Donald Harden and his wife Betty cracked it, working at their kitchen table. The decoded message was chilling. The killer described killing people as sport. He claimed his victims would become his slaves in the afterlife. He said he would not give his name because it would slow down his collection of slaves. The Z340 cipher was sent in November 1969. 340 characters. It sat unsolved for 51 years, defeating every expert and every computer system applied to it, until December 2020, when a team of 3 amateur codebreakers, David Orenchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl van Eyck, finally cracked it. Using a combination of computational analysis and extraordinary patience, the decoded message was deeply unsettling. The Zodiac taunted investigators for not catching him. He described visiting a remote area of the state and claimed to have collected more victims. He signed off with a threat of more to come. The FBI officially confirmed the decryption in December 2020, 51 years after the cipher was sent. 2 smaller ciphers, the Z13 and Z32, remain unsolved to this day. The Z13 in particular is believed to contain the Zodiac's real name. 13 characters. Unsolved for over 50 years, possibly containing the answer to one of America's greatest criminal mysteries. The Zodiac case involved multiple law enforcement agencies across Northern California: the Vallejo Police Department, the Napa County Sheriff's Office, the San Francisco Police Department, and eventually the FBI. The investigation generated hundreds of suspects over the decades, some more compelling than others. The most famous suspect is Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester from Vallejo, who was investigated extensively by Detective Dave Toschi of the San Francisco Police Department. Allen matched much of the physical description provided by survivors. He had a Zodiac brand watch with the crossed circle symbol. He had made statements to acquaintances about wanting to hunt humans. He was investigated multiple times. His home was searched. He was never charged. DNA testing conducted after his death in 1992 did not match DNA recovered from Zodiac letters. But the DNA evidence from the letters has itself been questioned. Contamination concerns have been raised. And some researchers believe the DNA may not have come from the Zodiac at all. Allen remains the most compelling suspect in the eyes of many researchers. And he died without ever being definitively cleared. Here is a question that does not get asked enough. Is the Zodiac killer still alive? The confirmed attacks took place in 1968 and 1969. If the killer was in his mid-20s at the time, which physical descriptions suggest he would be in his late 70s or early 80s today. Old, but possibly still alive. The Zodiac sent letters until at least 1974. Some researchers believe letters attributed to him extend into the 1980s, though the authenticity of later letters is disputed. The case was never officially closed. There is no statute of limitations on murder. If the Zodiac killer is alive, he could theoretically still be charged and prosecuted. The San Francisco Police Department still carries the case as open and active. Investigators still receive tips, still follow leads, still hope that someone somewhere will provide the piece of information that breaks the case open. The Z13 cipher still sits unsolved. 13 characters, possibly containing a name, the name of a killer who may still be alive. The Zodiac killer case has generated more books, documentaries, films, and investigations than almost any other unsolved crime in American history. Why? Part of it is the ciphers. They transform a criminal case into a puzzle, and the human brain cannot resist an unsolved puzzle. Part of it is the taunting letters. The Zodiac was not just a killer. He was a communicator. He wanted an audience. He wanted to be famous. And in a terrible irony, he got exactly what he wanted. Part of it is the geography. San Francisco in 1969 was one of the most culturally alive cities in America. The summer of love had just ended. The hippie movement was fading. And into that world of idealism and peace stepped a killer who seemed to represent everything dark and inexplicable about human nature. And part of it is simply the fact that he was never caught. Unsolved cases haunt us in a way that solved ones do not. The Zodiac killer is still out there, in some sense, still unnamed, still unjudged, still holding one cipher we cannot break. 5 confirmed victims, dozens of letters, 4 ciphers, 1 decoded after 51 years, 2 still unsolved, 1 possibly containing a name. The Zodiac killer terrorized Northern California in 1968 and 1969 and then slipped back into the ordinary world, back into a life that looked like everyone else's. A neighbor, a colleague, a stranger on the street. Somebody knew who he was. Maybe somebody still does. The case is still open. The Z13 cipher is still unbroken. And somewhere in California, the answer to one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries may still be walking around, waiting to be found. Subscribe to Mysterious History for new mysteries every week. The official story is never the whole story. Coming up next on Mysterious History, billions of dollars, bribery on a global scale, rigged elections, fixed matches, secret deals made in hotel rooms. The most powerful organization in world football has a history darker than most people know. The corrupt history of FIFA. Next week on Mysterious History.